WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. Well, a major shakeup this week in the battle for one of North Carolina's most competitive congressional seats. Addison McDowell and Mark Walker were destined to head to a runoff for North Carolina's 6th congressional district after Super Tuesday. But a call this past week from Donald Trump changed everything. Walker suddenly ended his bid for Congress and took a job with the Trump campaign. And with no Democratic challenger, it means McDowell is headed for Capitol Hill next January. Joining us now, former Congressman Mark Walker. Mr. Walker, welcome back to Flashpoint. Nice to have you.
Thanks, Ben. Always good to be back.
So on Tuesday, you tweeted out that you wanted to debate Addison McDowell. In fact, you tweeted, "What could be better for voters," is what you said. Less than 24 hours later, on Wednesday, you know where I'm going with this, you dropped out and you endorsed him. So what changed?
Well, I think there was a couple of different factors. One, there's no Democrat running this far, didn't file. So I knew we would be in good hands. This would be a pickup, flipping from a Democrat seat to Republican seat. And then get a call from President Trump Tuesday afternoon, about 45 minutes after I sent that tweet out there. And always enjoy a good debate. I think it's good for the people, just to kind of keep the pressure on their campaign as well. But President Trump was very specific in his ask. With our background as 16 years as a minister and some of the work we did across the state of North Carolina, really across the country with HBCUs in the minority community, he asked me what I consider leading in this area for his campaign. He also went as far as said, look, I know you may be interested in running for something in the future, but I think you'll like working with me directly in the White House much better. And so we had a good conversation, 15, 17 minutes there. I did bring up some of the different I guess gut punches over the last few years as we've tried to fight off the establishment and continue our area of service. And so, but I think it was a very, I would say, compassionate call, I guess, from President Trump. That's probably seems like a paradox to some, but it was a good conversation. And we decided that if he needed the help immediately, this was an area that we could come in and offer some assistance.
A lot to unpack from what you just said, but I don't need to point out to you, you held this seat in the past. You ran for the Senate, you ran for governor, you ran again. Mr. Trump did not endorse you. You were within 2 points in the primary. You easily qualified for a runoff. After all this time, what do you say to voters who supported you, who are like, why quit now?
Well, I will tell you this, we've had overwhelming support as far as moving forward with this. This was a brand new district. 90-something% had been redrawn by, I guess, Phil Berger and the state legislature. But once I realized and thought through this process that we were in good hands there, and this would provide for us an opportunity to continue our service to where I feel like the two areas that we find great fulfillment, that's the faith-based groups as well as working in and outside of the minority communities with authentic relationships that existed long before politics. It just made sense. Ben, I'll even say this, if I was currently serving in the U.S. House, if I had not been redrawn out of my seat by the Raleigh State Legislature, I would have left Congress to go and work in this capacity. I think so much of it. I'll be working on the phones today with Susie Wiles and others as far as we try to put this network together. We'll start focusing on North Carolina and Georgia. But if the president thinks that I'm the person that can help with this, we're happy to help. Obviously, I don't run from the fact that we have two different styles with my approach and some of the things that we've been able to do over the years. Yes, you are correct. We kind of flew through the ranks our first 6 years in the U.S. House, and we've had a couple of bumps in the roads as far as the endorsement. In the Senate race, we had $15 million of outside money from a D.C. special interest group come in. That's tough to overcome. And I'll tell you this, I probably haven't shared this with everyone, but as I looked at this, we raised $800,000 from many wonderful supporters. To have the heart to go back and ask them to re-up one more time was a factor in this as well. And so I'm not hating the fact that I don't have to spend the weekend making fundraising calls this weekend.
Nobody can fault you for that. I think that's probably one of the hardest jobs that elected officials and people running have to do. Last time you were on with me, last June, you said to me during your run for the Senate, the former president promised you his support, but then, as we know, shifted and eventually ended up endorsing Ted Budd. What makes you trust him this time?
Well, I think we were able to talk with much more specifics. You are correct. Recounting, they're working in the Oval Office. I remember Vice President Pence was to my left. Mick Mulvaney at the time was to my right. And we were talking in general terms. And I said, anything that I run for, he said, Mark, anything that you run for, you'll have my support. 18 months passed. So we didn't stay in contact a great deal. Things change. People are able to present different cases. And I will tell you this, even yesterday or 2 days ago on the phone, President Trump did tell me, he said, Mark, he says, I didn't even know that you were in this race till about a month ago. But based on our work, based on, I guess, our skill set and what we were able to accomplish, look, we were the first freshman ever to win the chairman for the largest caucus. We went on there. We're the highest rated conservative, serve in the top 4 or 5 leadership positions in the U.S. House. The only Republican in the country that's won the United Negro College President's Award, as well as giving the commencement address at one of our state's HBCUs. These kinds of compilations, I think, in talking with President Trump, was something that he wanted to move on pretty quickly to make sure that we have people that are in these different arenas that can talk about the value of these conservative principles.
If former president wins in November, you said in your statement that you would continue in a similar role in the White House. What position have you been offered in a Trump administration?
Well, I can't get into all the specifics. I think those were President Trump's words as well in his social tweet. I think he closed about looking forward to continuing this work in the White House. Whatever administrative or executive role that might be, that is something that we would, anytime you get a chance to work in the White House, that you feel like that you can bring something to the table. I think it would be an honor. How that looks, I guess, will be determined. But we've got bigger issues to make sure that we take care of first, and that is to make sure that the failed Biden administration ends this coming year, at the end of this year.
I want to talk about the appeal of Donald Trump. He's an outsider. He's brash. He takes on the status quo. People like that. But you, specifically in this new job, you are now charged with his outreach to faith groups. Given his character flaws that both supporters and opponents will point out to you, how can you explain his appeal to evangelicals?
Well, first of all, let me start with saying that as a person of faith, as a former pastor, I look at myself as a sinner as well, saved by grace. So I don't think anybody is without, but I'm not going to shy away from the fact that there has been some history there. And I think in talking with President Trump, it's interesting. When he looks at evangelicals and from a faith perspective, the people that just are wanting to worship the Lord and have religious liberty, I think that's one of the things that they align with. You remember, President Trump is the only president in history to go after the United Nations in a public way for the religious persecution, for the United Nations not dealing with religious persecution. He was the only president that showed up at the March for Life rally there. So it's a paradox, because of some of the language, because of some of the history there. But the fact that he clears the way to allow people in faith-based groups, not just evangelicals, to be able to really exercise the First Amendment, which is the freedom of religion, the freedom of expression, I think that's a lot of the appeal from evangelicals.
As a former pastor, what would you say to Mr. Trump about the treatment of others, grace, forgiveness, compassion, caring for marginalized people? What would you say to him about those things?
Well, I would say to President Trump what I would say to everybody, that as a follower of Christ, we do want to be mindful sometimes of our speech. And I think Paul writes, so let it be seasoned with salt. And I think that's part of growth as a believer, as a Christian.
All right, Mark Walker, the new Director of Faith Outreach for the Trump campaign. Mr. Walker, thanks for coming on. And once again, we appreciate it.
Been my privilege. Thank you.
Still to come on Flashpoint, this week marks 4 years since the first COVID case was detected here in Mecklenburg County. Ahead, where we stand in our battle against the deadly virus. Plus, a look at another disease making a surge here in the Charlotte area.